Suffering is something we instinctively try to escape. We numb it with distractions, bury it under busyness, or wish it away. But the Stoics, those ancient masters of resilience, looked at suffering through a completely different lens. They saw it not as a curse, but as a forge, a place where character is shaped and strength is born. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." To the Stoic mind, every heartbreak, every loss, every obstacle is not just an unfortunate event. It's an opportunity, a challenge designed to shape the soul into something greater. In our world today, pain often feels meaningless. We think, why me? Why now? But the Stoics reframed the question. They asked, how can this serve me? How can this trial carve away my weakness and reveal my strength? This video will take you deep into the Stoic philosophy of transforming pain into power. You will learn how to face suffering without fear, how to turn hardship into wisdom, and how to emerge from life's storms not weaker, but stronger. If you're ready to master your mind, rise above your challenges, and see suffering through the eyes of a Stoic, make sure you subscribe to Stoicism Mastermind, give this video a like, and join us on this journey toward unshakable strength. To understand how the Stoics transformed suffering into strength, we first have to understand what they believed suffering really was. For most people, suffering is simply what happens when life doesn't go our way. A failed relationship, the loss of a loved one, a career setback, a dream that crumbles. But for the Stoics, the real source of suffering was not the event itself. It was our judgment of the event. Epictetus put it bluntly, men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them. This was the Stoics' great insight. Pain is inevitable, but suffering, at least in the emotional sense, is optional. We do not always control what happens to us, but we control how we interpret it. And in that interpretation lies the power to turn tragedy into triumph. When a Stoic faced adversity, they didn't ask, how can I escape this? They asked, what is this here to teach me? Every loss was a lesson, every hardship a training ground. Seneca reminded his students that the world itself is like a gymnasium for the soul. The weight we lift in the form of hardship is what makes us strong. Without resistance, there can be no resilience. Without trials, there can be no triumph. And here's the key. The Stoics didn't just think about this in theory, they lived it. Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations during a time of war, plague, and personal loss. Epictetus was born a slave, crippled by abuse. Seneca spent years in exile, falsely accused, and eventually forced to take his own life. Yet in every one of these cases, their philosophy turned unbearable suffering into unshakable strength. Modern life has taught us something dangerous, that comfort is the ultimate goal. We design our days to minimize discomfort. Soft chairs, climate control, endless entertainment, food delivered at the tap of a screen. And while comfort itself is not evil, the avoidance of all discomfort has a hidden cost. It makes us fragile. The Stoics understood that avoiding pain doesn't make it disappear. It simply makes us unprepared for the moment it inevitably arrives. Just as a muscle atrophies without resistance, the mind and spirit weaken when they are never tested. Seneca warned against this softness of living. He encouraged deliberately practicing hardship, not because he was a masochist, but because he knew that resilience is a skill. He would sleep on the ground, eat plain food, and wear coarse clothing just to remind himself, I can endure this. My happiness is not dependent on luxury. Marcus Aurelius took the same approach in his role as emperor. Despite having access to every comfort Rome could offer, he rose early, worked tirelessly, and faced daily criticism, betrayal, and political turmoil without retreating into luxury. Why? Because he understood that the man who avoids pain also avoids growth. In our own lives, this means we must stop running from discomfort. The rejection, the failure, the heartbreak. These are not enemies to be feared. They are the resistance training of the soul. Every time we choose to face a challenge instead of avoiding it, we build strength we cannot lose. And every time we choose the easy path, we quietly surrender a piece of our power. So the next time life hands you pain, remember, it's your training ground. Lean into it. Learn from it. Let it make you stronger. For most of us, hardship feels like an interruption to life. We imagine that life is meant to be smooth, and when suffering appears, we think something has gone wrong. But the Stoics saw hardship differently, not as a detour from life's path, but as part of the path itself. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The obstacle is the way." This wasn't poetic optimism. It was a deliberate mental strategy. By seeing hardship as part of the journey, the Stoics removed the element of surprise. They expected challenges, they trained for them, and when they came, they welcomed them like a blacksmith welcomes the hammer and fire, knowing they will shape the steel into something stronger. Epictetus went further. He taught his students that when misfortune arrives, we should not curse it, but thank it. Not because pain feels good, but because it is the ultimate teacher. It strips away our illusions, forces us to confront our weaknesses, and calls forth strengths we never knew we had. Think of a seed. To become a tree, it must be buried in darkness, endure pressure, and push through the resistance of the soil. Without that struggle, it never reaches the sunlight. So it is with us. Our growth is hidden in the soil of our suffering. When you can look at hardship and say, "This is here to teach me," you have already begun to master it. You have shifted from victim to student, from resistance to acceptance. And in that shift lies freedom. If there is one principle that lies at the heart of Stoicism, it is this: we do not control the world, but we always control our response to it. Epictetus taught that every event in life falls into one of two categories: things within our control and things beyond it. Our actions, our thoughts, our choices, these are ours. The opinions of others, the passing of time, the inevitability of death, these belong to fate. Most of our suffering comes from confusing the two. We fight against reality. We rage against the rain, curse the wind, and demand the world to bend to our will. And in doing so, we waste our energy on what can never be changed. The Stoics believed that peace begins when we accept the limits of our control. This is not surrender, it is power. Because the moment we stop pouring energy into the impossible, we can focus all our strength on what is within our grasp: our attitude, our effort, and our actions. Marcus Aurelius embodied this when he faced the Antonine Plague, a disease that killed millions across the Roman Empire. He could not stop the plague. He could not spare himself from grief. But he could lead with calm, serve with integrity, and live by his principles until his last breath. To accept what we cannot change is not weakness, it is wisdom. And when paired with the determination to act on what we can change, it becomes the foundation for an unshakable mind. The Stoics did not wait for suffering to find them, they trained for it. This might sound strange to the modern ear, but to them, resilience was like a muscle, and like any muscle, it only grows when tested. Seneca recommended practicing voluntary discomfort as a way to prepare for life's inevitable hardships. This meant intentionally embracing moments of difficulty before they were forced upon you. Sleeping on the floor, eating simple, bland meals, wearing rough clothing, walking instead of riding. The goal was not to seek misery for its own sake, but to strip away dependence on comfort. That way, when life inevitably took something away, the Stoic would not crumble. They had already proven to themselves they could live without it. Marcus Aurelius, despite being emperor, did not drown himself in luxury. He chose to live simply, to rise early, to endure the cold, the fatigue, and the constant pressures of ruling Rome. For him, these were not burdens, they were training. In our time, voluntary discomfort might mean taking cold showers, fasting for a day, or putting yourself in situations where you risk rejection or failure. The practice reminds us that we are stronger than we think, and that comfort is not a requirement for happiness. Because when you deliberately expose yourself to small trials, you're building an unshakable spirit, one that can stand firm when the real storms arrive. Physical pain may be sharp, but emotional pain can cut deeper and linger longer. Loss, betrayal, loneliness, these wounds are invisible to the eye but heavy on the heart. The Stoics did not deny the reality of such pain, but they refused to let it remain meaningless. For them, emotional pain was raw material, something that, if examined with honesty and courage, could be transformed into wisdom. Seneca advised, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." He did not mean that a hardship automatically makes us better. Many people are broken by it. What matters is how we respond. Emotional pain can be an anchor that keeps us stuck in bitterness, or it can be a mirror that shows us where we need to grow. Marcus Aurelius often wrote about loss, not in abstract terms, but in the deeply personal context of losing his own children. Rather than drowning in grief, he used it as a reminder of the fleeting nature of life and the urgency of living with virtue while we can. When the Stoics felt the sting of betrayal, they used it to deepen their understanding of human nature, to strengthen their compassion for others, and to temper their own expectations. For us, this means journaling our pain, asking what it's teaching us, and refusing to waste the lesson hidden within it. Emotional wounds, when faced with the right mindset, become sources of empathy, clarity, and inner strength. In time, what once felt like a weight on the soul becomes a foundation for wisdom. One of the most powerful tools the Stoics used to transform suffering into strength was something modern minds often find unsettling: negative visualization. At its core, this practice is about imagining the loss of what you value most: your possessions, your health, your relationships, even your life. Not to dwell in fear or sadness, but to cultivate deep appreciation and emotional readiness. Seneca explained that by contemplating the possibility of loss, we become less fragile. We stop taking things for granted, and when misfortune does arrive, it does not crush us with surprise. Instead, we meet it with a mind that has already rehearsed the moment. Marcus Aurelius practiced this daily. In the mornings, he would remind himself that he would meet selfish, dishonest, ungrateful, and even malicious people. By visualizing these challenges in advance, he could meet them without shock or anger. Epictetus taught that before you kiss your child goodnight, remember that they are mortal, not to dampen love, but to intensify it. Knowing that nothing is guaranteed makes every moment richer, every gesture more meaningful. In our own lives, negative visualization might mean picturing what life would be like without the comforts we currently enjoy, imagining how we'd cope if a major change came suddenly. This is not pessimism, it's preparation. It's training the mind to remain steady no matter what is taken away. And in that readiness lies a rare kind of peace, the peace of knowing that, come what may, you have already met it in your mind. For the Stoics, strength was never an end in itself. The true goal was to live with virtue, to align one's actions with wisdom, justice, courage, and self-discipline. Suffering in this light was not merely something to endure, it was the proving ground where virtue was tested and refined. When hardship strikes, most people ask, "How do I get through this?" The Stoic asks, "How can I act with virtue through this?" This question changes everything. It shifts the focus from escaping pain to embodying integrity. Marcus Aurelius, in the midst of war and plague, did not simply aim to survive. He aimed to rule with fairness, to protect his people, and to remain true to his principles. The suffering around him became the context in which his virtue shone brightest. Epictetus, crippled and enslaved, refused to let bitterness define him. His chains became a platform for teaching freedom, the inner freedom no master could take away. Virtue transforms suffering by giving it meaning. If pain becomes the price of doing what is right, then it is no longer just pain. It is a badge of honor. And meaning is what turns endurance into strength. For us, this means choosing honesty when lying would be easier, showing kindness when resentment feels justified, remaining disciplined when comfort tempts us away from our path. Every act of virtue under pressure is proof that suffering has not conquered us. We have conquered it. Because in the end, pain fades, but the strength and character it builds remain. All of this philosophy means nothing if it remains only in books and words. The Stoics lived what they taught, and the transformation came through action, daily, deliberate action. If you want to turn suffering into strength, start small. When pain comes, pause and ask, what is within my control right now? Focus your energy there. When hardship hits, reframe it. This is not happening to me. It is happening for me. When comfort tempts you, choose the harder path now and then, to remind yourself you can endure more than you think. Practice gratitude for what you have by imagining life without it. So when loss comes, and it will, you meet it with steadiness instead of shock. And above all, let virtue guide your response to every trial. Because no matter how much you suffer, you are never powerless to choose the kind of person you become through it. The Stoic way is not about avoiding pain, it's about using it. Turning wounds into wisdom, turning trials into training, turning obstacles into opportunities, and in doing so, becoming the kind of person no hardship can break. If this message resonates with you, and you want to keep building the mindset of unshakable strength, subscribe to Stoicism Mastermind, like this video, and share it with someone who needs this reminder today. Together, we can keep walking this ancient path toward wisdom, resilience, and peace.